Without much ado, join me in welcoming the moderator of our second panel, none other than Mr. Hemant Purohit, CEO, Parahit Technologies. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Well, clapping is not only as an applause, but it also helps to, build a nice ambience and positive environment. So every time I take somebody's name, I want you to give louder claps with more energy. Can we see a demonstration of the same, everyone? Fantastic. All right, let's see you welcome the next panel member with same energy. We have none other than Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Chief Marketing and Digital Officer, Future Generali India Life Insurance Company Limited. Joining us next in this panel is Mr. Kumud Upadhyay, Senior Vice President, Customer Service, Motilal Oswal Finance Services. My bad, Miss Kumud Upadhyay. Next, we have KV Deepu, President and Head of Operations and Customer Service, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. The next panel member I'd like to invite is Anubhav Goel, Head Digital Innovation, HDFC Ergo General Insurance. Joining us next is Mr. Suraj Shetty, Head of Customer Experience, Learning and Development, KISH. Next, we have Mr. Dipesh Karki, Founder and CTO, Lane Dane Club. Everybody, huge round of applause. Joining us next is Mr. Anant Subramanian, EVP and Head IT, Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company Limited. And the last member to join us for this panel is Mr. Mahesh Agrawal, Head of Information Management, SBI General Insurance. Well, the topic of discussion for this panel is digitally transforming the BFSI industry. Over to you, panel members. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Should I really say thank you? Okay, my voice is audible? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming back from the lunch and relaxing. It's hard to hear this panel and because so much food inside. The liver is asking you to rest. And then there are going to be points like AI and data and transformation. So we'll try our best to pep you up with our discussion at the same time having critical questions being discussed here. One of the key things since I have started my journey is the customer experience. And we always talk about it here and there, but in banking, somehow, these suit-clad people, for themselves, customer experience is that we are your boss. Now you tell us. So I think that has transformed a lot after having a lot of NBFCs, fintechs, and startups, and new concepts, and digital era coming into the industry. And then bank, I think, I'm sorry to say, but then they were the last ones to transform. But yes, they have quickly done it. And these giant people who are heads of heads of becoming the part of those transformations, they were the people who we must be about 250, 300 years of unique experience, right? And these people were those people who were into that legacy business and then realized the transformation and then was part of that journey where they became completely a new digital world. So I'd like to start quickly on how a banking system also has become a customer-centric business, which it was not 10, 20 years ago. So I'll have to refer so many points there, but still. So Deepu, I'd like to start from you because you came the last. So this would be your first to answer. So are you able to tell the audience that the banking system or your bank, it has become completely future ready and you are completely digitally transformed or something is left or you are still doing it? And is your digital transformation now a completely customer experience oriented or a customer centric digital transformation, or how would you like to explain that?
Thank you, Hemant. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I was just telling my co-panelists that, there'll be lunch after this, but I was told that you already had lunch. So that makes it easier on us, right? Because after having food in your stomach, it's no food for thought. So firstly, to Hemant's point, and I'll take a, diametrically opposite view that it's not that, only, startups or, new players on the block, have revolutionized the industry. Established players also, have been, savvy, throughout the entire journey. We embarked on our digital transformation journey, much in advance of COVID-19 because none of us saw COVID-19 coming. But COVID-19, as one of my friends put it, was a global unplanned UAT, right? Whatever you built, it was getting tested. And the good thing is at that time, because we were digitally ready, we did not just survive, but we actually thrived through the entire situation. And I'll give you a couple of examples. You take customer service. How do customers contact you? It's typically the contact center. 80% of servicing happens through the contact center. We were able to, and at that time there was a lockdown, right? Suddenly, and you couldn't go to office, and contact centers cannot work, when people are working in a scattered manner from work from home. But we were able to pivot all our customers overnight, literally overnight, right, to all our digital assets. So whether it was WhatsApp, whether it was our AI-driven chatbot, our mobile app, customer portal, and all the assets that we had. And the biggest, proof of the fact that it worked was the fact that at that time our customer grievances, when this happens, you expect it to rise, our customer grievances fell by 90%, not 10%. So I think that's one, clear validation of the fact that, we were digitally ready. And I'll give you one more example. Let's take, because I work in insurance, while Hemant referred to banking, but I represent insurance. The reason you buy an insurance policy is because you basically want the insurance company to come to your aid, when you file a claim. That's the reason you buy insurance. And let's take motor insurance, which is the biggest form of insurance in India because it's mandated by law. What would you typically do in case you crash your car? You would call up the insurance company, they would locate a surveyor nearest to the site of the crash, he would land there, assess the extent of damage, and the whole process would kick in. Can you believe today that, for example, with us, and of course there could be other players who have launched similar schemes, up to certain amounts, we can do it in 20 minutes. Just 2 steps. You take photographs, upload it using our mobile app. Our AI engine will kick in, assess the extent of damage, and it gets very granular. Is it a 45% dent, 60% dent? Does the part need to be replaced? Does the part need to be repaired? It will give you the extent of damage. You give your consent, money is transferred to you. 20 minutes, no waiting, no surveyor. So I guess I don't have to state more, to make a case for even the fact that even established players, have been digitally savvy, and we continue to, raise the bar because you can never say that you have arrived.
Suraj, would you like to add upon this transformation journey, because you come from a completely new business, right? You're
Yes.
not an established player. So how do you see that the journey, digital transformation happened before pandemic and after pandemic?
Okay, thank you, Hemant. Being from Kist is a fintech that provides BNPL, consumer durable loans and personal loans online. So since we were already online, the pandemic was not a big surprise for us since we already provided online services. But we did realize that there were some process gaps that led us to improve the processes better. So for example, during the pandemic, a lot of customers were not able to repay their loans because of job loss, business loss, etc. And a lot of customers used to call us that I'm not able to pay my loan, I need some more time, etc. And as usual, the customer service used to tell them that, no, you won't be able to get more time. I'm very sorry for that. But this does not solve the problem. We saw that a lot of customers went on social media and saying that the lender is not helping us, etc. And then later on, RBI came up with a moratorium option for all banks and NBFCs. So before this moratorium came up, based on these reviews, what we did is we started providing more time for customers. So it was not moratorium, but we started stopping all calls and SMS sent to customers so that they don't feel the pressure of payment. So this was born because one of the customer service executives came up one day and he said that this is the problem that we are facing. A lot of customers are not happy with the services being given. And that's how we changed the process, even before RBI came up with the moratorium compulsory option for all customers. So that's when we realized that in every process, there is a person who is able to find out the flaws in the process or find out the flaws in the policies that have been built, and he can point it out better than a process head or a process manager. And that's when we came up with a new set of position, which is known as process expert. So this helps us to be future ready. That means every department, be it customer service, products, IT, there is a process expert now who goes through the process day in and day out and points out the flaws in the process. And this has helped us immensely. For example, I would give one more example wherein a lot of customers were called for payments daily. And we noticed that when we call customers, the executive speaks in English, Hindi, but the customer is Bengali. He may not understand that, and he may not make the payment. So the process expert told us that, okay, let's do one thing. Whenever you're making a call, if the person is Bengali, just tag it as Bengali. And based on that tagging, every communication that the future communication that goes to customer, be it an IVR call, SMS, anything, it's in Bengali. So this is how the process expert has helped us to be future
So
ready.
you have created you have created a position called process expert, which
Yes.
now would make you future ready for all your CX activities.
Yes,
So
all
great,
product changes.
So great initiative, I would say that.
Thank you.
So it's a people initiative or a process initiative for that matter. So now technology becoming a role player in every aspect of our life. So the question is that in this era, so many technologies, so many apps, WhatsApp, and so many communication channels. How do you amalgamate all and innovate the data which they are bringing, those technologies which they are bringing? So how do you innovate and how do you amalgamate all those technologies put together? And then, so like there is a process expert. Is there a CX success maximizer in your companies, or how it works there? So Dipesh, I think you would be the best guy to respond on that.
Thank you for the question. So I think before that, we can take a quick poll, right? Today, if you call a customer service and the executive says, hey, I don't know this answer, and tells ki, please hold on a minute and I'll get a senior person for you. Right? And then you hear this long tone saying a ting, 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 something like that, right? How many of you hate that experience? Almost everyone. So this is the next generation, right? So I'm sure that kind of experience is not something that you would want to have, right? That's when you tend to look for alternatives, because we are Gen Z or we are millennials. So we would want a better experience that is more seamless. That's why the likes of neobanks are trying to rule over the traditional banking experience. Or for that matter, today, if you go to any food delivery applications or any grocery delivering applications, there if you raise a customer support a ticket, your ticket gets resolved within that span of maybe a minute or two at max, right? Wherein they give you an end resolution right then and there through a dedicated bot. The reason is because they know who you are. They don't ask you to verify your identity and everything. Second, they understand your problem. They have already pre-categorized your problem based on the type of data that they've received in the platform over the period of time. And if the system is able to communicate with you, in that case, that means they must have built some algorithm there in order to make sure the system can communicate in the language you wish to speak, right? That is called NLP, right? Natural language processing, right? So I think such type of innovations are required in order to provide an unbiased experience for the end users, in order to make sure they have an excellent customer experience throughout the journey. Now, this is something that cannot be a responsibility of just a customer support team, right? That's where the entire business team, right, from marketing to sales to relationship management kicks in. You share your experience, you share the intent of the customer, you share, personas of the customer. You build and you identify what is the kind of a customer that you're dealing with. You build an identity of that customer and provide that personal experience. I think these are the kind of innovations technologies are providing as on today. Eventually, the way I see it, tomorrow I should be talking to my Alexa or my Siri device and should be able to know my next purchase, should be able to plan my next investments. I think that's the kind of customer experience I would be expecting.
Great. So today, I'd like to talk about this. So there is people, there is system, there is technology, and we amalgamate, we innovate. That's how we do it. And then the Ola guy today tells you that jana hai ki nahi jana hai. So at that moment, you think that probably nobody is listening on that call. And we still are talking about the only player in the industry. Is he looking at the customer experience? So the point is, so the next point which I'm coming to. So I've asked this question and there are a variety of answers to that. there is one person in the company definitely hired for that CX experience and all that, and he or she is the torch bearer of that organization to bring customer experience mantra everywhere. At the same time, aligning the entire functional team and functions of the company or the organization becomes a task. Because you have to become the Mahavat of that Hathi where every pooch or the soond is going somewhere, right? And at the same time, this person's responsibility becomes a responsibility to build a culture, to align everyone. And how is that a task? Because I am working with you. Jana hai ki nahi jana hai? I have my problems too, right? So how do you do that? I think Kumud, you should respond to this. You're heading Motilal for doing this business only, right?
Yeah.
Aligning culture.
Yes. Thanks, Hemant, for bringing this topic, which is very close to my heart, like culture. So we all know culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner as well. Okay. So yes, rightly put up by Dipesh as well as my fellow, colleagues over here. Yes, I mean, technology is important in today's world. We can't say that we cannot live without technology. But yes, we also need to understand whether, EX is also an important tool today, right? That is your employee, whether, he or she is taking care of your customer, or whether that culture is imbibed. That means your corporate values, whether that is getting, really, implemented at the grassroots level. That is very, very important. So if you ask me, yes, customer centricity or building culture is everybody's job. It's not only customer CX team's job. It is like marketing, branding, or your, it starts with your maybe watchman, or maybe from doorstep to the CEO. Yeah. So if you ask me, yes, there are 3 areas where we need to focus on. One is, yes, of course, the hiring piece of it. So whenever we are hiring people, we need to take care of, whether the person is having the mindset, the hard set, and the skill set, right? These 3 sets are very, very important. So we follow an iPod methodology because it's very simple to follow. So P is passion, basically. So if the person is not passionate about, serving, he or she, may not be able to deliver what is expected, right? Second is obsession, obviously. You should be obsessed about your customers. I mean, how do you find that? You should be, whenever you're hiring people, you should impose some open-ended questions to them, right? So that you understand whether, their journey, what they have gone through, how they have served in their earlier organization, before taking them on board. And third is obviously the discipline, the execution skills. That matters the most, right? So if I'm having the mindset, if I'm having the skill set, but execution is also the key. Like if I'm able to synergize all the people in the organization and, actually doing what is expected out of me, right? So this is about hiring. Then second is socializing. Obviously, there's no magic wand. Okay, I hire a person and I tell him, do all these things and he'll be able to do, right? So I think human being is more wired to get, into the storyline very quickly, right? If I give you a story, you all will listen to it, right? And you will remember as well. So communicating, your employees through a story kind of a thing, then, that will help them, right? So socializing doesn't mean that, you have CX champions in all the, areas. Then you ask them to mingle with each other, sit with each other every month and deep down on some of the segmentations where the customer issues are right now. So yes, socializing is very, very important. And last is basically, after socializing, you need to reward your people. For example, it can be a spot reward, which you can have for your teams. You can have informal rewards that can also help, like, not in case of cash, but yes, certificates. And I think even a word of encouragement will motivate the person to perform, right? And third is, yes, formal incentives are in place, which definitely, is taken care of whoever is doing a good job or showing a customer-centric behavior. So I think, this is the methodology what we follow. One is hiring, socializing, and rewarding. And in hiring, you can remember the iPod methodology if that can help you out too. But yes, it is a subjective matter. It's not an easy task. It is like an ongoing journey for any organization to build a customer-centric culture. It takes years on years to build, this or instill this kind of quality in your team. So that's all
Well,
from my
so
opinion.
yeah, I experience from the hospitality industry whenever they make you, I mean, specific hotels only. That they delay you on the counter for that matter, they send you chocolate or a cake that as a gesture. So this is like for them customer experience or that sentiment because that's hospitality industry, and then you are in banking. So think like this, because many a times a collections agent will call you and then he'll be like, see, I have given you the money, I'm that narcos guy who will take my money back. So something like that. So are we really concerned about that experience? And then are we planning that still after doing all the work we will deflect somewhere? Or even if we can do some work after the deflection of first CX failure. So Anubhav, I would like to definitely come to you. Do you plan before or even after that CX failure at some point or the first CX failure, then there is everything mapped out, and how do you plan that?
Yeah,
What do you
so
want to talk about it?
that's actually a bad space to be, right? Like, if you say that we have a function who is a grievance department, which means a lot of grievances are coming, right? If you have a function which is just looking at lost customers, which means that you are losing a lot of customers, right?
No, so it can be like this, that for example, for the first time I'm getting the bad
Yeah,
experience.
correct.
So do you do something about it?
Yeah.
Because grievance will always be there.
Agreed.
For the second time or the third time or the fourth time, maybe three times I got a good this thing, and for the first time I got the bad behavior. So bad behavior.
So in fact, if you see how it works, right, from a consumer perspective and how we do it at HDFC Ergo, maybe I'll just connect the two, right? So if you use an app today, right, and you download an app and your onboarding experience is not good, right, what you do, you typically try to uninstall the app, right?
Right.
If you don't do install and you don't use it, but you stop your journey at the onboarding because you feel there are so many questions why it is being asked from me, right? And to reduce that experience, what people do is typically what they call it as a daily active user or a monthly active user, sort of a metrics which gets kicked in, right? So the whole idea is that you promised a customer something and you could not deliver that, and that's where the deflection starts happening, right? So whether it's a consumer who already was my customer and he came to me for another policy, right? Is there a way for me to bring him back, right? Similarly for claims, right? So we always tell in HDFC Ergo, we are not in the business of insurance essentially. We are in the business of paying claims because that's the promise, we make to a consumer. So I think that's where we put in a lot of efforts, right? And that's in the claim, the good part or bad part, like, in our kind of business is that we have certain time because the entire claim process goes through various stages, right? So what we realized earlier was that for the health claims, when you go to a hospital, there is a pre-auth process, right, typically which happens in the beginning. And that process was having a lot of friction. So it used to take like 1 hour, 2 hours, and customers are waiting, and what will happen? I think 1.5 years ago, we went very, very deep into it, and we said that we want to do customer pre-auth in like minutes. We actually changed the entire metrics, right? Earlier the metrics used to be that how much percentile is below 1 hour. Then we changed the metrics, and the dashboard started looking like in minutes, right? And the things started changing. Now, a large part of our cashless claims happens within 20 minutes, the pre-auth, right? Now we are taking it further. So the whole idea is that in case a customer had a bad experience, but he start thinking about it and start listening from the market that now the new experiences is coming in. That's one part, right? Why would customer come back to you? From the onboarding perspective, what we have seen is that the consumer who has got one policy, how do we ensure that he buys another policy from us? So I think that's where we have a lot of effort on the upsell, cross-sell. So the moment you link up business metrics, right, to certain division, they start thinking more and more about how to reach out to the customer who had a bad experience from you, right? And that's where we have a separate team, which we are calling as a Red Circle, who are actually like a wealth managers, right, so to say. So they are the ones who identify these customers who could have been premium customers. Because if you lose a customer, you just don't lose that customer, right? He has a circle of influence also around him. And you end up losing all of them, right? And if they are very, very premium customer, then the dent could be very, very huge. So I think these are the couple of ways by which we are trying to do improvements. So our grievance officer, so to say right now, he's actually the mirror of what we do, right? And he incidentally had the CX also. So I think that's the whole beauty of a large organization. If you have a sort of a startup culture within that company, then you have a beauty of a startup as well as the large scale coming in together. And then you can really, really transform at a massive, massive scale. which I think we have been doing. I think like what Jasdeep talked about, the motor claim, right? And we are like Flipkart and Amazon, right? He said he did it first, I said I do it first. So since you said it, like I'm like, no, I did it first. But that happens all the time, right? So I think we also have a similar thing. So the claim becomes the reality, I think, for most of the insurance companies, where we try to improve our processes all the time. Because from buying, still people are thinking about it. It's not impulse buying, right? People want to explore, people have time in hand. So that's what we are doing now, where we are trying to make the buying journey also very, very seamless. But I think on the claim side, I think we have done a lot of effort there to ensure that the deflection is reduced and the experience gets better and better.
So yeah, so that leads me to the point, which is very important. If you're listening to a lot of grievances, and you're agile and you're at that startup mode, that each new day brings you a lot of voices. So Ashish, it's your turn now, I guess. So the point is that if you're listening to a lot of things and then adding it to some AI into it, or the data is also a voice, I would say that. It's not just the customer grievance. So data fluctuation, navigation of the data in the company in a way, and infusing AI into it. So how would you like to talk about the power of voice and AI coming together in the insurance sector? So, which is close to your heart. We were talking about that.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, yes, it is very, very close to my heart. I mean, partially because of I represent life insurance, the funniest industry in which neither the producer nor the consumer wants to consume the product. I mean, I haven't met a single person who gets up in the morning and says, God, today I want to claim my insurance. Help me do that. Yeah? And nobody does that. In that industry, I mean, when I joined 3.5 years back, I was like, in first 10 days, I was like, what the hell have I done to myself? You are completely sitting on all morbid discussions. In this country, the amount of life insurance, you know who's the most famous model for life insurance? It's the photo frame with a garland around it. You keep replacing photo whichever you like. And that's what sells insurance. And then you are trying to create a CX journey. Just to take you back, and I'll give you the reason why voice is very close, and then I'll come to the AI part of it. When you start to think about it, the primary language of conversation, typically with business, remains English or Hindi primarily, or whatever the local language. Okay? The literacy rate, which means people who can read and write, is 67% in the country, but the way literacy is assessed is about you can read and write your name. Beyond that, nobody checks. If you go about creating a meaningful conversation in a language, and we sitting in these suits in the corporate offices drinking waters from these bottles, don't even think about it. How many of us actually know that the actual conversational literacy rate in the country beyond in English is less than 15%? We are talking only about 15% people who are able to even read, write, and understand what we are saying in our beautiful videos. We create all these emailers and then keep wondering why nobody is opening them. Because if you are creating them in English, you look at all the fantastic words. Yeah, suddenly Shashi Tharoor looks very, very close to us. I'm only referring to the language, nothing else. No extracurricular activities mentioned out here. Okay? But when you come to think about it, how many deaf and dumbs are there in the country? There are only about deaf and dumbs put together are less than 1.4% of the population. The moment you translate from read and write to conversations, you are suddenly increasing your reach to 98% of the population. And then comes, and that's the power of voice. Yeah, you can interact. Why do we think? I mean, suddenly all these taxi guys were able to transform the entire industry. I mean, how many Ola guys have to go through in English? How many guys who come to deliver at your home have to actually know anything in English or be able to read it? And this guy is running a business because of he is able to converse in whatever. You think that he writes on Uber, I have arrived. He goes and he clicks on one button which he knows I have arrived, it will say, or he speaks to the app. And that's the power of voice. You are able to reach to 98%. But voice opens a holistic amount of challenges. For example, the light bulb. Okay, we all call it bulb. And we, again, marketer's dilemma, we all suffer from things that I know it all. And all marketers, I mean, there's a condurum around it that marketers are actually paid to have preferences. Yeah. And the moment you have preferences, that's the time you actually create most differences. We say it light bulb. In Bengal, it is called as lattu. In Bihar, it is called as something, gola. Now, there are some 30 different ways of pronouncing a light bulb. How do you do that? We are in a country which has more than 7,800 dialects of different languages. I'm only talking about dialects. The way I speak and the way somebody 100 kilometers away would be speaking are different. How do you, if you open a conversation channels, you are opening a floodgate of conversations, and the only way you can actually understand them is where comes AI. Okay, if we don't jargonize, I mean, marketers have second best thing, and I curse myself for being a marketer on that ways. We love jargons. We just don't feel comfortable without it. If you don't jargonize things, we feel, oh shit, who is going to pay us our salary? It's as if our skin, you jargonize every damn thing. AI, I mean, to a lot of people it could be whatever. To me, it is nothing using a simple machine to do something repetitively. And I'm using AI, and from like some 2003 when Microsoft Word introduced F1. That was nothing. It was AI, because if you go, you don't know anything, you are dumb enough like me, you go click F1, it'll tell you something to do. And something will happen. God only knows what will happen. In fact, today also in AI, only God knows what will happen. Okay, so this is the power of AI. Because of you generate through conversation is a unstructured data. System allows you to be able to understand, manipulate, and create repetitive behavior basis that unstructured data. In insurance, where you have to be able to create emotion. I am into a product. If nobody gets up in the morning to consume the product, the only way is, as an organization, we believe in protection and prevention. Because of, if you come to think of it, insurance can only take away financial pain. The loss of a life can never be replaced. I can pay whatever amount I can pay. I cannot fulfill. If I lose a limb of mine, no amount of money can make me feel the way I feel today. I'm able to walk. The fresh air which I get when I cycle around. So the only way to do it is to do prevention. This voice and this entire technology enables me to have conversations. And if you are being able to have meaningful conversations, I think marketers' job for the day is done.
Wow, that was great. So, so when you say marketer, then you should also talk about marketers or marketeers as tech leaders, because nowadays a marketeer cannot run without being a techie.
Oh, I will just take one more minute. You have now prompted me. Today, a CMO has to change. I mean, so like we had BC and AD, now it is BC and AC. Before COVID, after COVID, there is nothing AD. So, and marketer today has become a chief inefficiency officer. He is not CMO, he is CIO, because if a campaign does not go, it is marketer's problem. If website goes down, it is marketer's problem. Analytics team does not deliver the data on time, it is marketer's problem, because somewhere somebody will sit on Twitter and feel thumb happy, and it will come back to marketer. And so I think you very rightly pointed it out. As a marketer, one needs to look at the holistic business, and the only way it is keep the consumer in the center.
That's why I want to bring the marketeer discussion to the tech leaders, and the tech leaders, how they planned, how this RPA thing is planted to the tech leaders at the center of how you create value in the end. So Anand, I think you should, however, I have had the discussion and it's been there in the industry, but still, for enlightening everyone how RPA can add value.
Hello. Yes, so RPA, I mean, obviously, nobody needs to know what RPA is out here, but how do you actually go about ensuring that it works within their organization? Now, I represent the mutual fund industry, and the way mutual fund works, is quite different from an insurance or a securities business or a bank. I mean, we really don't have a touch point with the customer per se out here. Okay, for me, the customer is the distributor who actually sells the products for us. So how do we make use of these functionalities within the organization? That itself was a challenge. And we decided to go and pick up RPA as a route to move ahead. We are wondering as to what to automate. And for us, we obviously looked into these low-hanging fruits to begin with. And the challenge that people have, if there is an RPA happening, then what happens to me and my function and my role in the organization, right? So we had to dispel those kind of myths. It's very, very essential that, so when we had our first meeting with the team to really understand what we can automate, there were absolutely no ideas that came up. Everybody, and we were wondering, hey, you guys work day in and day out, you use Excel sheets, you are doing a lot of things in ops on a day-to-day basis. Is there something that we can do to ease your pain, to make you not do things repeatedly, which you might otherwise do through an automated function? But nothing really came up. We actually had to go to a non-ops section and kind of implement something to actually make the users understand how it might benefit. That, hey, this benefits in so and so manner, don't bother that, don't think that you are going to be, going to be made redundant. So that was the biggest challenge. It was honestly, and once that happened, we started with an investor services. So again, customer touch point, we try to do as much as possible to look at external factors. How we did a lot of automation on the CRM piece. We did a lot of automation on the distributor and the investor servicing piece. Dipesh mentioned earlier about trying to analyze the customers' needs. We tried to see how we can get some sentiment analysis done on the call center piece. So these were all the areas that we touched upon. And once the people understood what is possible, then they started, we then got a barrage of, requirements. And we are wondering, hey, now you guys are in queue, you guys please wait, because we started off small. Then we had to, in fact, add a lot more resources to see that we could scale up and, build those, because once they started understanding what is automation all about, they realized the actual power that, what they could do, what they could actually manage, how they could actually bring about efficiencies, do better customer servicing, reduce their day-to-day tasks, and probably look at things a lot more productively. It's not that automation was not there, okay? If you look at the days of Lotus 1, 2, 3, write a macro, that was an RPA happening, right? You could kind of click one button and you could run some 10 processes in the system instead of, doing some calculation. This is a lot more scalable thing that has happened. You had Hotmail and now you have cloud. So these technologies were always there. It's the way these things have kind of scaled up, come out in a new avatar, and obviously brought in those efficiencies given that everything is required as of yesterday, right? So yeah, it has been a great, it's hygiene today. It's hygiene today to have an RPA running in your organization. Otherwise, it's very difficult to cater to what the customer requirements are. Everything is required as of yesterday. So yeah.
Yeah, so when all these technology and everything comes in place, or this RPA comes in place, then comes a lot of data. And then before RPA was the data, and then after RPA there is a lot of data. So now when we talk about that, then how banks or the industry per se is planning or having a roadmap for data modernization journey. So I think Mahesh, you should get to this point, then how the data modernization journey happens. A 20-year-old customer having a data sitting 20 years ago, and then all these processes came. Now, would you like to personalize having a personalized conversation or personalized touch base with him, or some, how do you handle it?
So good question. Good question, Hemant. We have been speaking about people, someone talk about process, someone talk about technology, and RPA. All of these are combined with data. If you don't have the data,
Mike, I think, yeah.
Hello?
Louder, yeah.
If you don't have the data in place, it doesn't work out. Whether you have the good people, the best of the people from the industry, but it will not work out to the activity which is required. As Deepu mentioned, we were thrown into a UAT during the pre-COVID area. There were grievance issues which were highlighted by Anurag. So this type of issues, how do we plan it better? How do we predict those things better? How do we prescribe those things better? rather than moving into a situation unknowingly or moving to a situation where we are not aware what is going to happen. So, a data strategy is a key to all of them. We have a lot of huge sets of data, which where
Mike.
we have a lot sets of data. So the data could be about his past history, about from the industry, from the regulators that we can have the data sets available. We can have a lot of information from grievance, from bureaus, from all the markets. How do we ensure that we view the threat in a way which can prescribe to the strategy which the organization want? We need to understand where are we as of now and where we want to go. So we need to plan things, we need to have a roadmap to reach and the courage to press the destination button so that we reach where we want to. So that's how a data strategy will work. That's how we can view the thread between people, process, technology, and data. Data being the key, data being the lifeblood to ensure this circle gets completed. And that's where the new technology front, we can have big data, we have cloud, where from the legacy system, we can move, we can transform and support the customer, get the experience the customer wants.
So that's where
yes.
I was coming to. 2016-17, we started a small. I have participated into a fintech. We created a credit score, demographics-based credit score, not CIBIL or anything like that, and we went to ICICI. And the first thing they said put it behind us. And we were we were on AWS. And we were doing all the calculations. We had our data, we had our integrations, we had everything. And they said, no, we don't care. Put it behind us. And that's where I come to this banking industry. Why I say that? Because maybe now you guys are so fast and so quick. How cloud technologies are fueling into this space, and how app modernization based on the cloud, because there is a spike, there is an ad running, 1 lakh hit comes, you think of AWS. Do you really think of the app modernization at the same time? So this is where I want to have Dipesh coming in, and because the Lane is more or less a young lad.
I see that our hosts are quite impatient here because the event got stretched. I'll try to make it brief. So, of course, because we come from the startup community, right? And I have Anubhav here, who also has this previous Anubhav of running a startup. So we can tell that, the beauty of having cloud technology out there is it lets you focus on your core value, right? Just for me, like being a lending club platform, right? I can focus on what I should deliver from P2P lending. I can see how do I bring investors, how do I bring, I don't need to worry about what is the kind of cloud infrastructure that I need to bring on the occasion of Diwali, right? Wherein my borrowers all of a sudden shoot up, right? That is something that has already been taken care of. Just like I mentioned that my core value is to take care of my business, there is already other businesses out there that are delivering their core values in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cloud, in terms of other facilities that they provide along with clouds. For example, provisions of functions as a service. Imagine at one point of time we used to talk about cloud as not cloud, sorry. Infrastructure as a service, from there to function as a service, that's a huge change, right? Today you think of deploying something, it's right out there because somebody has already made it available for you. Today you can containerize your entire experience so that you don't need to worry about the scale, you don't need to worry about system downtime, etc., etc., right? Everything is being taken care of. There are, people now are thinking of implementing deep learning into your data so that, just like Deepu mentioned some time ago, 20 minutes, how can you give insurance, right? There must be some set of data that is out there and somebody's actually, sitting on top of that data as an actuary and making sure that these data come up and build a story, build a trend in order to let the, end consumer, that is us, know that this is the decision that you have to drive out of that data. So that's where cloud plays a significant role, and I think that's pretty much my side.
Well, that concludes our whole thing. Time is up. This woman always, stares at me because maybe I talk too much. I don't know, but still,
I hope you enjoyed it.
Still, I would like to have everyone share, few misses and some success stories in a minute or something like that. Yeah, that's how we will cover up this session. Please, Anubhav.
No, I think stretching this session is a miss for sure because I think she'll just.
Yeah, or
kill
should we
us,
take the questions now?
Yeah, up to you.
Yeah. So we all understand as an audience as well as the panel that we have missed something and we have got some success. But you guys have any question, then we will certainly like to answer that for the sake of the event. Yes.
Or we can take
Any
it at the
questions?
coffee
Yeah,
time or
please.
something. No.
And who you are asking to? Yeah.
Was it for me?
Yeah.
He literally got food for thought.
Yeah, please.
For banking, especially as a chief digital officer, how many clicks does it take for account opening today? Has it changed? Because speed also matters. We are talking about 0 to 60 in 3 seconds something for automobiles. Similarly for banking, are you measuring that also? If
Very,
not,
very good question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not from banking. I'll give you one tip though, okay? Whenever you want to do this. So, I belong to UP and as a student, I was very nasty. And my teacher, what she used to do is, I always had this habit of doing something which she won't like. And she would ensure that I do the same thing like some 100 times. So I've picked that habit. So whenever somebody designs a form and I don't like, I don't do anything. I never say anything to them. I say, I want you to fill this form 1,000 times. Today, that's your KRA. Just keep filling. Okay? Just keep doing the same journey 100 times only and then come back to me, then we'll talk. Trust you me, my very first year of joining, after 3 months it happened. And since then, I have never been able to find that opportunity. Because if everybody knows, you get it to him, he will do nothing, just do it 100 times. If you start designing for customer, you won't have that problem. Half of the time we design for regulator. And half of the time we design for CEO. We all, as a marketer, if one thing you want to carry from me, always carry the only person, you should only be loyal to the person who pays your money. Okay? And your money is not paid by your CEO, it's paid by the customer. If you become loyal to him, everybody else will follow through. Otherwise, bakaya sab gyan hai, moh maya hai.
Thank you.
On that note, thank you so very much, guys. The audience, we have spent 10-15 minutes or maybe 30 minutes more on this panel. Thank you so very much for being a very nice audience. And I hope that we have served the purpose. Thank you.
Well, a big round of applause to our panel members for taking the questions and also discussing a lot of important points. Everybody, once again, let's give it up for the gentlemen.